Service members of Reddit. What is your worst military wife story? While delivering our fourth baby at a military hospital, we were talking to one of the nurses about infidelity and crazy things she had witnessed. She told us about a woman coming in with her husband for a C-section that was not scheduled. The woman insisted that she was scheduled for a C-section that day. They did an ultrasound and found that she was 3 months pregnant, not 9 months pregnant. She was willing to deliver a baby 6 months early so it would appear the conception lined up with her husband's mid to leave. Standing gate guard in Washington, D.C. Officer's wife drives through the gate and presents her ID. I wave her through. She doesn't move, asking me if I forgot something. I said no, I didn't believe I did. She said I forgot to salute her, pointing to the blue sticker on her windshield. I leaned close to her windshield and saluted the sticker, wishing it a good afternoon. I got removed from that duty. Do you really have to salute an officer's wife? Duck no. Unless the wife is also in the military and outranks you. Some military wives think their husband's rank applies to them though, and they pull shit like this all the time. I am a military spouse, but worked as a DoD employee with the Marines. Got a call that a military spouse was in the hospital. Her place on base housing had gotten broken into. The 9-month pregnant spouse was raped and beaten and taken by ambulance to the hospital. The assault caused a miscarriage. I was devastated and went to the hospital with several officers in the Marines chain of command. One of the nurses tending her looked me in the eye and said, "I am very interested in how this is going to play out." I was so confused. The 9-month pregnant rape and assault victim was given an ultrasound and blood work performed upon being admitted to the hospital. She hadn't been pregnant. She wasn't raped. Her due date was the next day and she's been faking the pregnancy the whole time. She beat herself up and cuffed herself up with a knife, then made up the rape story resulting in miscarriage as a way to cover up the 9 months of lying to her husband about being pregnant. I've never seen this level of crazy until 3 months later, when said Marine reunited with batshit crazy girl even after all that. Oh, I'm gonna post some of my friend's highlights. She was the midwife on an Air Force base. Delivered lots of babies. Colonel brought his 16-year-old daughter in because she was pregnant. Turns out the father was a new junior enlisted. He did not last long in the military. Dude's wife left him and moved in with her boyfriend off base while he was deployed. She got knocked up. Since they were still married, she was still going to the base for medical care. Their divorce wasn't final by her due date, so she still got to go on base and deliver. Her soon-to-be ex-husband, the military guy, had his buddies in security forces put a security flag on his soon-to-be ex-wife's boyfriend. The boyfriend couldn't be on base for the birth of his child. And, always the favorite, babies coming out with the wrong ethnic background of the father was at least a once-a-year thing. I got restationed back in the States from Germany. I flew my German girlfriend over and we ended up getting married. She went back to Germany 4 days later and I never saw her again. Lol whack. Had a friend do something similar. He married a German girl while in the army. They had 2 kids. He decided he missed USA and moved back here. His wife stayed there for 8 more years raising the kids. They wanted them to go to school there and be stable. So after about 8 years, she comes home. He almost immediately got a job as a trucker. I don't think he liked being around her. Lol. Posting on behalf of my husband. Worst, they came back from a 15-month tour in Iraq. His platoon sergeant went home to find another man living in his house, with his wife and kids. His kids, toddlers, were calling the guy daddy. When he walked in, his wife basically said, "Yay. I want a divorce. I'm with him now." Worst part was the platoon sergeant and new daddy, kinda, worked together, but was one of the few who stayed behind for clerical stuff while the rest deployed. Yes, I know this is absolutely against the rules. This was when shit was the Wild West and a DUI was an unofficial requirement for E6. Eater, I asked my husband what happened after this. He doesn't know what happened to Jodiac, a deployment replacement daddy. The husband threatened to take the kids and kick her onto the street, which he definitely had grounds to do. Instead she agreed to on-demand 6 and 3 threesomes, including summoning a prostitute if he wanted one and helping him keep it on the DL. A guy in my shop, Air Force, deployed to Iraq for 4.5 months. Before he left he signed over general power of attorney to his wife. While he was gone, she started ducking another guy in our shop, then signed the divorce paperwork as his power of attorney and his rights to see his kids, as well as draining his bank account. She went to live with the other guy in my shop and his friend off base. They were both arrested for check fraud when trying to pass off a check that was the roommates in the shopette on base. The guy she divorced eventually got full custody of the kids and the other guy in my shop got kicked out of the AF. There were other stories of cheating and all of that kind of shit, but this one takes the cake. She actively worked to ruin his life when all he did was love his kids and get deployed to Iraq. Don't give anyone general power of attorney, ever. I don't care how much you trust them or how much you think they love you. Don't do it. You can give them specialized power of attorney that only allows them to handle your affairs that you very specifically need them to handle. My brother-in-law was on both sides of shitty cheating stories. He married a woman he chatted to online for a few weeks when he was 19. Then he had to go to Iraq. A month after he left she told him that he got her pregnant. He comes home after 6 months and she has the baby. The baby definitely is not his. Fast forward 10 years. He's married to an awesome chick we all like. She works a job and takes care of everything around the house. He cheats on her with her 18-year-old girl that worked at Sonic. She catches him and leaves for a weekend to go stay with her sister to figure out what to do. He puts all her stuff in cardboard boxes out under the carport and moves in the new girl. Our neighbors, too, brought us some stories. 1. Unit deployed and she met a new guy. Used power of attorney to divorce the husband overseas and married the new guy so quick she was able to stay on base in the same house. First husband came home and ended up being in the same platoon as second husband who now lived in his house with his kids and all his belongings. 2. When we first moved in on base we had a neighbor that was super friendly. Wife told us she had cancer so her brother was staying with her to take care of her. We think nothing of it. A few months later they moved out to live off base. Normal thing so no reason to be skeptical. Fast forward a few months and I'm shoveling the driveway and a guy from next door comes over to say hi. I say hi and welcome him as a new neighbor. He's not a new neighbor, he's had that house for a couple years. I got confused and asked about the woman who had moved out recently. He told me that woman was his wife, the brother was her lover, she didn't have cancer, and she spent all his money on Farmville then moved out with everything they owned. So, I was Air National Guard for 9 years. There was a girl who enlisted about the same time I did. In those 9 years before I got out, she had been married and divorced 3 times. She wasn't even 30. I believe her marriages went Marine, Navy, Army. Her rationale each time was that it was the guy's fault. If someone keeps picking a rotten apple and taking a bite, you don't blame the apple. I was deployed to Iraq and had a fiance at the time. She called off the engagement because she said I was too controlling. It turns out that not wanting her to go to bars and dance topless is considered controlling. I later found out she was already sleeping with another soldier from another unit. Probably wouldn't have been a happy marriage anyways. P. Signed up in the Navy to go to Japan. Got assigned to my first ship in Japan. Captain hated his wife. Saw many other lovely countries that weren't Japan. Epilogue. Captain finally rotated out. Get orders to go to Iraq for 16 months. I worked in postal. In Italy. There's so many military wives that come in screaming that their husband is a captain general whatever so you totally need to let her male whine to her friends in the States. Sure, lady. I'll totally break federal law because you are married to one of 24 captains sitting in this base. They scream louder when I explained that it was illegal. This happened at least twice a week. Couldn't get out of Italy fast enough. Well, I was in the Navy, my husband was a civilian. We married young like all service members do at 19. We grew up in the same city and dated for several years. I thought I knew the guy inside and out. He had some anger issues but nothing out of the ordinary for a 19 years old dude. I deployed to Afghanistan almost immediately and that's when things changed. Some other base wife told him that I was ducking dudes in porta potties, which I was not. He started doing heroin at some point, started selling drugs to base wives, absolutely trashed my house. He sold everything and drained my account, thousands of dollars in deployment money gone. He left base never to return. My 2 dogs were left in the house, did more and more damage, and were taken to the Humane Society where I paid hundreds to get them back. He hung out with a Japanese girl off base until my return. They got pregnant, then he started to follow me and threaten me. Anyways, we got divorced and his psycho mother continued to threaten me for several years. Overall very fun experience, would rate 4/10. Ooh boy. Buckle up. This happened over the course of 3 3-month deployments over a 2-year period. First deployment, I came back to my wife and a big stack of mail. In them were 2 notices of repossession for non-payment of my car, 3 final notices for all of our utilities, and a letter from the landlord. I started off with the car, since I didn't want it to be repossessed. I went to our joint bank account and found it empty. No bills had been paid in 3 months. When I asked her about what happened to all of our money, she said, I went to Waffle House a lot. Second deployment, I came back to a house with 4 dogs and 3 cats. There was the outside garbage can sitting in the middle of the living room. Oh, and a homeless guy was sleeping on my couch. She, apparently, had taken to volunteering at the local animal shelter and had to save all these animals from being euthanized. The backyard had no grass left from the dogs digging. The carpets were torn up from the feral cats, and there were a pile of dog shit, petrified, all over the house. When asked about the garbage can, she said that it was just too hard to take the trash out. When asked about the homeless guy, she said that she had met him at Waffle House and he just needed some help. The third deployment, I came back to my wife having to make friends. After pailing around with them for a couple months, a different girl friend told me that my wife had been cheating on me with these 2 guys. When I asked about the cheating, she said she only sucked his big dick because it was Christmas and she hadn't gotten him a gift. Ugh. My SGT's wife still needed to become a legal citizen. When we deployed, she got arrested for selling alcohol to an underage undercover cop. Yay, manufactured crimes. So while we're deployed, my SGT and most of my command is spending extra time and effort trying to fight the legal system in the US and keep them from deporting her back to Mexico due to her now being a criminal and also overstaying her work visa. So my command and the SGT fight and eventually win. Wife gets to stay in the country and gets to become a citizen. Fast forward 2 months and it turns out his wife's brother is not actually her brother but her boyfriend, and my SGT's daughter has been calling her father uncle for a few years. The wife's family apparently knew that the daughter belonged to the boyfriend who was also in the country illegally and just never said anything, so that the daughter would be claimed by my SGT and be considered a US citizen and it would help the wife get citizenship. Now this woman, her boyfriend, and her entire family were in on a plan to help the wife get citizenship through an active duty Marine. I'm not saying I think they planned the conception or anything, but an opportunity arose and they took it. In my book they are all human scum and I hope the daughter never learns about any of this. My SGT eventually, and still is, in deep denial about the daughter now being his and believes his wife simply cheated on him. He forgave her and they are still married 8 years later. A buddy of mine I met in ET school had met a younger Mexican girl, fell in love, and wanted to provide a better life for her than he was able to at the time. He had been in the Coast Guard and rejoined. He had the first pick of where he was going to be stationed next because he'd already had prior service and had been on a ship for years. The school was about 5 months long. While he was there, his wife decided to join too without telling him. They were from South Texas, and he had a choice to be stationed in Galveston, not far from both of their families. But she ends up getting stationed in Oregon, on land. The closest place they could get him to where she was stationed was Seattle, also on land, but he obviously wanted to be close to her, so that's where he opted to choose. However, within a couple of weeks of graduation, She also gets transferred to Seattle, so it looks like things might be okay after all, until the day of graduation when they tell him they have changed his orders and he will be stationed on a polar icebreaker which would be leaving the week he gets to his new unit. The ship was set to literally make a trip around the world and he'd be gone for 7 months or so. He finds out while off the southern coast of South America that she had been kicked out of the Coast Guard for Drew Gussender for cheating with the guy she was stationed with, another long story, and was now working as a stripper in Seattle. Were there red flags before they got married? I'm not sure, but it didn't seem that way before she joined the CG. He was a nice and really good dude. Weird turn of events in such a short time. Edit, for those who may not know, when being temporarily stationed somewhere for training like this, at least in the CG, they do not pay for your spouse to join you, nor do they provide any form of lodging. She was living in Texas when she joined the service while he was stationed in California. I have two. First, I was the witness to one of my soldiers' wedding. It was a typical Joe wedding in that it took place midday, at a Wings End Things, during the lucky bride's lunch break. The mother of the bride owned said Wings End Things but refused to attend the ceremony despite being at work that day. It was pretty amazing. Second, I was at officer candidate school with an army hot blonde. She was a deployment 9/10 and everybody hit on her. She was drowning in attention but it was all for naught because she was married to a Green Beret or something. Well, all that attention finally got to her and she started sleeping with the cadets. It got to the point of her and another married female getting nailed in a hotel room at the same time and they reportedly high-fived mid-coitus. About 3/4 of the way through the course she started to put on a little weight and it sure seemed like her belly was growing faster than the rest of her. About 4 weeks before graduation it came out that she was, in fact, pregnant with who the duck knows baby. Not long after graduation I heard that her marriage to MR.SF did not survive the encounter. I once pulled over the same lady on 3 separate occasions for speeding in a school zone. I was trying to be nice the first 2 times and let her off the hook but she started bawling the 3rd time and I lost my patience. She kept sobbing saying her husband was deployed. I let her keep doing this for a couple minutes while I was writing everything she said in my notes. It felt like a hot fuzz moment. I finally asked how her husband being deployed was relevant to her speeding in a school zone and then she just stared at me. Like she couldn't believe I would question it. She got quiet afterwards and I handed her the ticket and walked away without saying anything else. Hope this counts. My grandfather was stationed in Germany where he met my grandmother. They got married in Germany and she moved back to the States with him, where his family was absolutely not very happy about it. His mother actually offered to buy him a brand new car if she married a nice American woman instead. Obviously my grandma wasn't too happy about that and decided the best course of action was to have a second wedding in the US to prove she wasn't going anywhere. They were married 55 years and she's still living in the original family home. She really didn't go anywhere. Well, there was that time a group of Midway wives, mostly from PI, were running a prostitution co-op out of base housing. On the nights they were working, one would take all the kids and babysit, the rest would work Club A and use their homes as duck cribs. A whole lot of husbands came back early from that deployment. The guy on Diego Garcia who was being counseled about paying his bills back home when a notice came in from Navy Relief that his spouse in Subic kept coming in for emergency loans and he was not supporting her. Turns out he'd married a nice girl in a church ceremony in Subic so he could screw her, then just cut contact. He already had a wife and kids in the US. Worst military spouse, not wife, but it was fairly awful. Flown off the island in under 48 hours. One of our older guys went home on leave and came back married to a stripper. He brought her over. She showed up wearing a gold diamond encircled Kruger and she's gotten from her previous husband. We were hosting reservists at a party at my apartment. She said kiss my ass. One guy said bear it. She hopped on the low table and pulled down her pants and panties and spread it. Nope, out of my home. She began cheating in the afternoons with a guy off the Midway, not even married a year. Our guy sent her back to the States, but our command made him come inform us to the day of the packout. By the time he got home, She had taken everything except his clothes. Turned up pregnant with twins, but never could prove they were his. Not sure if the other guy wised up or not. Oh, I have so many more. On my first deployment we had a cone guy that was dumber than a bag of hammers. His wife wasn't much brighter. We didn't have any steady communication with back home, so the days we had phones or internet access were always a big deal. Well, one of those phone days he came in all excited saying that his wife told him she was 3 months pregnant 4 months into the deployment. He did his rounds of telling everyone all excited, and I don't think anyone had the heart to tell him to think about the math. We get back from deployment, and when his son was born he came out looking a little different than what everyone expected. His wife was Mexican, so I guess that was enough to convince him that everything was okay. On my last deployment I re-upped for 3 more and got a $35,000 bonus. Since I was overseas it was non-taxable income. After coming home I learned I had stage 3 colon cancer. 3 days after my last chemo treatment she told me she had been ducking around the whole time, drained all of my pay, the bonus, and sold my truck. She was a therapist. I'll tell my brother's story. Air Force. He went to work one day, had a normal day, then came home. When he arrives home, his wife's car is gone. He thinks nothing of it. He goes into the house, and it's a ducking disaster. Clothes strewn everywhere, appliances in weird piles all around the house, and a bunch of stuff is missing. Washer, dryer, fridge, light bulbs, their bed, couch, etc etc. Most terrifying of all though, is that their son is also missing, along with a bunch of his stuff. His son was around 5 or 6 at the time. He starts to freak out, because there's no note about it anywhere. He tries to call his wife, but her phone is off. He tries to get a hold of his wife's family, but nobody answers. He calls mutual friends, nobody has any idea. He then calls the police and reports that they've been kidnapped, and states that her car is missing, and thus it must have been stolen during the kidnapping. Remember this part, it comes up again in the future. The police come out and take a statement, and then she finally calls him while the police are there. She tells him that she's staying with her family, and that they are getting a divorce. She also has a restraining order on him, as she has told a judge that he is abusive and violent. He is not, and she later admitted she felt bad about lying, but she wanted custody, and her lawyer advised her to say that. The bitch knew when he would come home, and waited 45 minutes until after the fact to call him and let him know his life has been ducked. Their son is fine. He relaxes as much as he can, but she has really ducked him here. The restraining order gets him in trouble with his boss, and he's ducked up for a while by how bad he was blindsided. And keep in mind, this ducking brother of mine served 3 tours in the Middle East, in Iraq, Afghanistan. This shook him up more than an IED did, so everything is okay at least. A few days go by, and they start working with lawyers to solve everything. Well, guess what? Remember when he reported that her vehicle was missing, stolen? She used that in their custody battle as evidence that he was malicious and vindictive because he did it to cause her trouble with the law, and to scare her, and the judge ends up siding with her and punishing my brother for filing a bogus police report when he thought they had been kidnapped. No ducking joke. My brother's lawyer was a buffoon, and she came from a family with money who got her good lawyers. She took him to the cleaners and got everything she wanted. Even the very house she abandoned when she left him. She didn't move into the house though, she just evicted my brother and then sold it months later for much less than it was worth. It took him years to recover mentally and financially. He's out of the military now, 20 years in, retired, and getting his civilian life on track. He has a great relationship with his son, and his ex-wife continues to be a constant source of pain and misery. My brother handles it like a champ though, because, as he puts it, no matter how horrible and demanding she is, he has faced far worse just working in the military. My brother is an absolute ducking legend. His life has been full of ups and downs, more downs than ups, but he still keeps going. I respect him more than anyone else out there, and without a doubt he is my hero. Love that dude.